It shouldn't be a surprise that the vehicle hunter loves Honda Elements. And as soon as I got an Element, I started thinking about making it a camper. How can you turn a tiny SUV into a camper? Well, let me show you. Not only the Element makes a great camper, it gets better miles to the gallon than a regular van, and it looks much cooler. There are so many Element owners that have turned the Element into a camper. And you'd be surprised that the Element makes a really good camper. This is just a little compilation of owners on YouTube that own Elements who travel all the time and do camping on the Element, and the reasons that they picked the Element. Off the top of my head, the Element looks better. It's an SUV, so it can go a little bit off-road. You can get a 5-speed manual transmission in an Element and have a practical camper that you can take anywhere and you can stealth camp in.
Kopek and I lived in a 2006 Honda Element.
So now this will be the 3-sleeper setup, and
if this 2004 Honda Element.
As I travel around the country living out of my Honda Element.
For the past 2.5 months now, I've lived in my car. It's a Honda Element.
Now I've upgraded my Honda Element that I got this last spring.
Like my Element so much.
My wife and I have been living in our 2004 Honda Element full time.
Honda Element for camping and climbing and traveling.
Hi, and welcome back to Hotelment Adventures.
We're on our way, the maiden voyage of the new Element.
Be a great time to show you guys what the camper van looks like.
Buddy bus, the Honda Element.
Hello from the inside of my house.
This particular setup by Sage is really good. He's done a great job setting up his Element. He also takes great videos, so you can really see exactly what he's done. The compartment on the side is something that I've really not thought about, but it seems like a lot of the Element camper people seem to do, and it has a lot of function to it. Sage probably has the best setup. It's lightweight. Some of the Element owners put too much weight into this vehicle that's already kind of heavy, but this is pretty much a perfect setup the way I see it. He's got a very minimalistic setup except for the solar panels, which is a great idea. Having a large bed like this really helps out, and keep in mind that Sage also travels around with his dog, so that just adds to the complexity of the build. His setup definitely is probably the right balance between like complexity and minimalism. He has a really good setup. Even with the solar panel, it doesn't seem to take up a lot of space. It doesn't seem to be overly complex. So you can see that like people do crazy stuff to their Elements, and probably a whole lot more. He probably doesn't even need the solar panel, but this is just something, if you're traveling for a really long time, it's nice to have. This is something that I really like, that when you open that suicide door, he can reach various things from that side. That's something I've never thought about, but makes great sense.
I can grab things sitting on
Hey everyone, my name's Nate. This is my channel Element Van Life. I travel around the country living out of my Honda Element as well.
The Element Van Life guy is probably like the most famous Element camper around. Like, he has tons of subscribers on his channel, and he has lived on the road for months and months, and it's quite inspiring to see how well he does it, especially hearing about his stealth camping. And he's got a really good setup. It's not complex. So I think if I was to set up my Element, it would be pretty similar to his. And knowing that he has spent months and months inside his Element and doing stuff outside and all of that, it really makes sense to follow his example. With rising house prices, you're seeing a lot more people taking to the streets and using cars and vans as their house. And it makes a lot of sense because you can do so much more having a car. And a Honda Element really gives you all of this and more because it's got so much to it. It's so versatile.
few weeks, I've converted it into a livable camper type configuration. It all starts out with this 2004 Honda Element. But the first thing I want to point out is I attached this USB fan here to the ceiling, and that other thing that you'll really see first is this water jug. Food. So I have a whole wide variety of food here. The first thing that you'll probably see is the bungee system paper towels. I've got this nice rope here across the top, and it's connected here with the bungee. That way it's secure and it won't go anywhere. Another thing that I did was I took this tissue box and I bungeed it in. That way it wasn't sliding around when I was driving. I've got my plastic trash bags that will go right there. And then I have my water. So this is just a box, and I'm keeping my extra water in here, and my sun reflector. These go in each window and blocks out most of the light. The one thing that lets in the most light is this sun reflector right here, and I bought it really cheap, like Ace Hardware or whatever. I was in bed one night and I was like, this'll work, and I tried it and it worked. So I'm happy.
I've lived in my car. It's a Honda Element, 2006.
Her setup is a little bit on the messier side, but it's very functional. And sometimes Element owners and van owners go a little bit overboard with their carpentry, and they make the Element a little bit too heavy. This setup is actually perfect for a lightweight rig. And the Element is already heavy. I would be concerned about having too much weight, especially with wood and everything. And having these plastic containers really is a brilliant move, especially putting your bed on top of
Cushion
containers.
for long rides. It's very comfortable. And yeah, this is where I live. And it's very small, but it's comfortable. It has everything that I own, and I like it. I don't really know what else to show you. That's pretty much it.
Like my Element so much is because of all of the cargo space. You can see from this
The cargo space is really what makes the Element an excellent vehicle. And his setup is very simple. He is not using a lot of space. I like that he's got open spaces. I think a lot of the Element campers I've seen too are a little bit almost claustrophobic. You can't really have some space, like empty space. I just need a little bit more space inside the Element.
There's a kitchen area. We made a table that folds up to fit the stove. And a little area for cutting. Is all of our pots and pans. Fold up the front so we have easy access to all of our stuff. So when we do need stuff, we just fold this up. Pull it. We have to pull the chair forward.
One thing I find that amazing is that Phil is traveling with his wife, and Phil must be a complete saint to be able to tolerate another person in such tight quarters. It's something that I could never do, but all the props to him.
And this is it, guys. That's our full-time home for the past almost 7 months.
2x4s that go across, and I have it supported on right up against the chair, and this chair is actually pushed all the way back, so you didn't lose that. I've made spaces in between to take your hand and grab things below. However, if something's much larger, then this actually does lift up like it does in the back. I had it in my garage, so basically all this wood was free. I believe the only thing I needed to buy was the hinges and the screws to fasten it to these rails. Now, being built out of 2x4, this is solid. This does not move much at all.
The Buddy Bus, the Honda Element. This is our bed.
It seems like the platform method of beds is very popular among Element owners because it makes a lot of sense. You can store stuff underneath, and just by building a very simple platform for your bed, you can have a lot more storage.
Fortunately, the Water Blobs thought of that with our proprietary folding bed mechanism. Sometimes doesn't work perfectly. Here we have a almost full bed. It's only been slightly trimmed at the foot of the bed to allow smoother folding action.
This system makes a lot of sense to me because I don't really like to build stuff with my hands. I prefer to just buy things and just install them. And note, this is a 5-speed element, which is kind of cool to have a 5-speed element. Having these containers from the Container Store and putting a bed platform on there, it's a great idea because you don't have to build anything, and you're probably going to start camping on the element with the seats. The seats recline into beds, but then you're going to realize they're probably not as comfortable as you would like. So this system might be the next step up. The next step up after this might be with the shelves and the carpentry and all of that stuff. But this really probably works better than most element camping. It just makes me think by watching this video that the simplest answers are always the ones that make the most sense. This system makes the most sense for me, at least. And this is probably something I would try out before I went all out and I built something out of wood.
Second piece of foam also unzips, comes off.
Hello from the inside of my house in couch mode.
Whether you like the element or not, I think for me one of the coolest things about the element are the element owners. They're eccentric, quirky people. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video of the Honda Element camping system. I'll see you on the next one.
Oh cool, because my other little car was so little down. I felt like I was sitting on the ground already. I had to climb out of the car and then stand up.
Alright, I'm gonna end the video now.
That's for the best.
Pick no treats.